Hello there, all you tasty viewers. It's Halloween, and I'm just outside the sorority house waiting for everyone inside to let their guards down. And I thought it would be fun to talk about some spooky cartoon-themed video games this Halloween. So sit back, relax, and let's talk about some spooky little video games. The first game up is Porky's Haunted Holiday for the Super Nintendo. The story is that Porky is planning a vacation. He falls asleep and dreams of a haunted holiday. This is a straight platformer, if you're wondering. Porky does have a throw attack, but I have no idea how to use it, so really you jump on enemies and jump around platforms. Mainly, you can get by jumping on enemies' heads. When it comes to horror, this game doesn't really have much by way of that. You get this haunted woods level that ends with you fighting this giant ghost, but there's really not much else in terms of like spookiness. The platforming in the game isn't really that bad, it's actually fairly decent. There's some real butt-clenching platforming in it. Really, a lot of it's simple but fun. There's some cool level design, some 3D stuff happens. There's this weird door maze you go through in this Ren and Stimpy-like level where everything's just kind of weird. Nothing is very hard in this game, but it's not really that easy either. I enjoy it. The bosses are a little weird though, as are the enemies. They seem kind of stiff, but Porky's animation is pretty smooth, and his idle animation makes him look like he's having some type of a fit. Just look at this. What the heck? This game is alright. I mean, I think I bought it for $5. My favorite part of this game, though, is that Daffy will sometimes jump out at Porky to scare him and launch him into the air. And I kind of wish that was the game, where you're playing as Daffy Duck and you just have to scare Porky Pig. Like, that would have been really fun. But anyhow, this game's alright. Alright, the second game here I'm talking about is Beetlejuice for the Game Boy. It's a hard game, but it's better than the NES game. This game, for the Game Boy, is actually based on the cartoon show and not the movie. It starts out with Beetlejuice needing to clear a bunch of ghosts out of the Dietz's house. So in this game, Beetlejuice is now a Ghostbuster. This game is an action platformer. There are several like mini boss fights that you have to go through with ghosts, and sometimes you'll have these mini games thrown at you. Like for instance, the Simon Says game where you have to fill up a meter, and once you do, Beetlejuice and a ghost will make weird faces at each other, and if you make the weirder face, then you win, I guess. There's also this pipe puzzle that you have to do, which in honest truth, I can't get past. I wasn't able to play most of this game because it was so hard. But it's a very interesting game, and it does work, and there are some cool fights that I did go through with like possessed pants and this thing in the kitchen. It's alright. I would like to play more of it, but it's really hard and I just don't have the time. There are some interesting little cutscenes between Lydia and Beetlejuice. They're just talking head bits, but they're in the game. Overall, I'd say give this game a try if you can find it at a reasonable price. Up next is Tiny Toons Dare to Scare on the PlayStation. And this game, I will say, was a huge disappointment. I thought this would be like a point-and-click horror-themed Tiny Toons game, and it's not. And honestly, I can't tell you what type of a game this is. I'm not sure of the genre. Story-wise, you're in Elvira's mansion. That's the little girl's name, right? Elvira, that's her name? And you wander from floor to floor, flipping switches and watching 3D pre-rendered like things happen for some reason. I don't know why. It all seems really random. But once you pushed all the buttons on a given floor, the elevator will be powered up somehow. Somehow it powers up the elevator and you can use it to go up. Apparently Elvira's making a monster and the goal is to stop her. I don't get it though. This game has a disappointing amount of Tiny Toons characters in it. You play as the cat, you have Daffy Duck and Porky Pig, and they occasionally say something, but they probably got like 10 lines between them, and you can't really interact with them. There's a guy on the elevator who's a little weird, but other than that, it's like you have Elvira, and I didn't see any other characters. I'm sorry, but this game isn't good. It's not fun, and it's completely disappointing. Like a horror-themed Tiny Toons game would have been really cool. A horror-themed point-and-click Tiny Toons game would have been just as cool. This game, not fun, not good, did not care for it in the slightest. Alright, next up is Toonsylvania for the Game Boy Color, and boy oh boy do I know my audience. I know that there's several of you out there who are just like, finally, somebody is reviewing Toonsylvania on the Game Boy Color. Thank God. Well, It's not a bad platformer, to be honest. I've never seen the cartoon, so I can't speak to that aspect of the game, but story-wise, you play as Igor looking for the body parts of Phil, Dr. Vic's monster that you accidentally blow up in the opening cutscene. This is a competent platformer. You search these open levels looking for switches and icons that will allow you to build various helmets that aid you in the next world levels that you go into. Each world is some type of horror-themed world. You get an evil garden, some underwater ruins, cemeteries, etc., etc. At the end of each world, which consists of 3 levels, you fight a boss, and after fighting the boss, you collect one of Phil's body parts. Once a body part is gained, you get this like puzzle mini game where you have to put together your next gadget within a time limit. It's an interesting game. There's not a whole lot to it, but I did enjoy playing it. Like, it's a competent platformer. It would be good for an 8-year-old, I think. And lastly, the Piece of Resistance, the ultimate Halloween cartoon themed video game, The Simpsons Treehouse of Horrors for the Game Boy Color. Now, somewhere there's a very smart person who said, let's make a game out of The Simpsons Halloween episodes, and thus we ended up with The Simpsons Treehouse of Horrors for the Game Boy Color. And although it's not the greatest game in the world, I'm glad somebody made it, and I find the game to be a bit enjoyable to play. Most of the levels are based on different Treehouse of Horror shorts. The first level has Bart jumping around the Simpsons house, finding fuses to light different areas of the house until he gets to the attic where he rescues Santa's little helper who is trapped there by some type of malevolent spirit. Now, the house isn't a one-to-one recreation of the Simpsons house, but it looks similar. Mostly you're fighting vacuums, flying books, spiders, rats, ghost hands coming up out of the floor, etc. Bart uses a slingshot as a weapon and jumps and moves kind of sluggish. The feeling of being hindered in movement speed is a feature in this game and all of the levels therein. Another level has you playing as Maggie, who has been turned into a fly and has to fly through a kitchen-themed obstacle course. In another level, you play as Marge from a top-down perspective. Here, Marge comes equipped with a gun. The goal is to get through the zombie-infested streets of Springfield. Along the way, she fights a zombie Apu, a zombie Mo, or several zombie Mo's. The game kind of has several of them. And there's a zombie Principal Skinner as well. And then you fight Krusty the Clown. I'm not sure if he's a zombie or not, however. He could just be there being a dick. It's not really indicated. There's a level based upon the episode where Mr. Burns is a vampire. In this level, you play as Homer jumping around in the Vampire Burns' castle in the Erie state of Pennsylvania. This is a fun level with some good platforming where you have to avoid a rising wall of deadly vines. I enjoyed this level, and it ends with you fighting a vampire Burns, who will kill you in one hit if he catches you. Another level has Lisa running around the school trying to rescue imprisoned children before the cannibal teachers eat them. I don't know if you would call it a stealth level. It's really not. Lisa doesn't have any weapons, and I find it hard to get around the cannibal teachers who are there. But there's a good number of characters in this game from The Simpsons show, and a lot of them are in this level, and I really, really like that. I appreciate it a great deal. In one level, you are Robot Homer searching Burns' lab for his missing body parts so that he can reassemble himself. This requires Homer to traverse the lab until an eyeball appears above his head and allows him to search the background to get the body part. In the last level, you play as King Kong Homer, destroying the city while tanks and planes try to stop him. In the end, you climb a building and fight a fighter plane. The Simpsons Treehouse of Horror provides a fun, if flawed, experience. I do wish there had been more Simpsons locations and characters in it. I don't think we see Barney in the game, and we don't see Flanders in the game, and various other characters who could have probably played a role in there somewhere. Kang and Kodos don't make an appearance, which is a sin when it comes to Simpsons Halloween stuff. But other than that, this is a pretty good game. Movement is really slow. Platforming isn't the greatest. It is fun in that vampire level, however. Overall, if I had to give this a number rating, I would give it a 6 out of 10. It's about a little under average, but it's still good. Glad it exists. That's it for me. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Like and subscribe and all that jazz to help the channel with the algorithm. And now if you'll excuse me, I gotta get the heck out of here before the police show up.